Welcome to the Friday edition of Juan's World. And as I mentioned on Tuesday, this coming Monday is Plough Monday. Plough Monday is the Monday following Epiphany. And the general idea was, certainly in the 19th century, that the ground was going to be all hard and unworkable right around the winter solstice, so that the ploughman could have a holiday and they could celebrate Christmas and whatnot, and into Epiphany. But then that Monday, then they had to get back to work. And of course, the first thing they did was have a holiday, and then they eventually went back to work on the Tuesday. And that just reminds me of something that I've been thinking about for quite some time, which is the balance between working and not working. And that sometimes gets cast in the form of a concept, the work-life balance. And I want to talk about that. Now, if you have a concept of a work-life balance, that implies that there is work and there is life. And that's always struck me as odd, but I can understand why some people would have that concept, because they don't think of themselves as truly living when they're at work. Now that's a bit strange, because they are living, but I guess the way you think about it is that they're not enjoying things, or they're not somehow in control, or they're not independent, that somehow their life has been taken over, hijacked by their work. And that, I'm sure, is true for a lot of people who don't like their work. And I think I was going back a very, very long way, but I remember talking back in the early episodes of the difference between labor and toil. You know, like you work to do something, but sometimes that work is sheer toil. That means you hate it. I mean, right now in my publishing, I'm finishing up a manuscript which is under contract, and I'm having to add citations to the text, and I'm also having to create a bibliography. And eventually down the line, I'm going to have to create an index. Well, I call that work toil, because I just absolutely hate it. And I do it because it has to be done. The washing up has to be done. Mopping the floors has to be done. I mean, it's not terrible toil, but it is toil for me, as opposed to labor, which is work, but it's work that is not unpleasant. You know, like generally when I sit down on my computer to write a new chapter in a new book or something along those lines, or even making these videos, I mean, it's work. I've got to set up my camera. I've got to take out the card in my camera and upload it in the laptop and edit and all that kind of stuff. So it's work, but it's not toil. It's just labor. It's just effort, if you like, of some sort. And I don't know about whether I always enjoy this, but it's not tedious. It's not tiresome. I wouldn't do it otherwise. I mean, because I'm not making any money on it. Which brings me back to work. Like, how do you define work? Like, in the concept of work, life balance, the work part, it seems to me, is normally construed as doing something in order to make money. Well, for me, that's irrelevant, because I don't make money doing anything. I don't make money on these videos. I could make a little tiny bit of money on my publications, because I do get royalties, but it doesn't amount to much, and it's really not work that I'm paid for when I'm doing it. When I'm writing a book, there's nobody paying me to do the writing. The payment only comes after the book's been published and is selling, and various other things are in place, and then I might get a small check from a publisher because of books that have been sold. So for me, it's an oddity, but it's always been an oddity, because there was a long period of time, I mean 45 years or something like that, when I used to work and get paid to work. I got paid for teaching right up until I stopped working in Mandalay. I used to get a handout from one of the workers at my school. They had a safe in the teachers' lounge, and the first of the month, she'd open up the safe and pull out my salary and give it to me in dollars. And that, that's, you can call that work. But the thing is, when I was teaching in Mandalay, I loved it. I've always enjoyed teaching. I used to have a student when I was teaching at the State University of New York. I designated in every one of my classes a student who would tell me when the class was 5 minutes before its end, because otherwise I just get lost. I just start lecturing, and sometimes, telling stories or maundering on or whatever. But I'd be, really just deeply engaged, and quite frankly, could just keep talking. And one student, so you've got 5 minutes. Okay, I better wrap this up. I didn't enjoy the paperwork and other administration of being the head of my department. So I used to say that I was paid to do administration and that the teaching was free. When right now, here in Cambodia, the teaching is free. If I'm asked to teach, I happily do it, but they don't have the money to pay me. And I do it because education is in terrible shape in Cambodia. It never recovered from the Pol Pot era, when anyone with any kind of education, and we're talking about even like a primary school education, they would just get killed. And all the teachers were killed, the ones that didn't escape, and the country just hasn't ever come back from that. The universities have a majority of faculty who don't hold PhDs, who don't know what research is, who basically learned the tools of the trade as undergraduates maybe have a master's degree, and then they turn around and they teach what they've been taught, but they don't do any research. The only people that do any kind of research have PhDs that they got from other countries, from Japan, Singapore, Australia, maybe universities in the United States or Europe, but they're very few and far between. The sociology department at the Royal University, where I used to teach last few years, the sociology department has no PhDs, not even the head of the department. And that's very common. You do sometimes find people who have advanced degrees in the STEM subjects, and they're pushing them a lot because the government thinks that the future lies with STEM subjects. I'm not going to get into it with them, but that's short-sighted in the extreme as far as I'm concerned. You need all kinds of people to run a country. You need writers, musicians, academics, teachers of all stripes, teachers of history, teachers of language, not just foreign languages, but also your own language. Like you need people who are going to be able to instruct in advanced writing in the local language and so forth. But that's not happening. But when I teach here, it's like I used to teach back in New York. I just love it. I've taught all kinds of subjects here, and as long as the students are engaged, I'm happy. So, as far as I'm concerned, teaching and writing are every bit as much living as they are working, whether I'm making money or not. So I don't have any balance issues. In fact, these days I probably write a minimum of 10 to 12 hours a day, and sometimes even more. Sometimes 14 hours, 16 hours. Sometimes I fall asleep at the computer because I'm so busy that I forget that I need to go to bed. And when that happens, I pack up my laptop and take a nap and then get back to work. And it also reminds me of something that my students at the State University of New York used to say. They learned not to say it to me, but they used to say it when they first started out. They would talk about real life, and they would say something like, well, in real life, blah, 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 as if the university was not real life. They somehow thought that university education wasn't really living, and I used to put paid to that very quickly. I used to say, what do you think? Do you think that 9 o'clock on Tuesday and Friday mornings, Scotty beams me down from the Enterprise into the classroom and I teach for an hour and a half and then he beams me back up? No, this is my life. This is my work. And what about you? I mean, if you get pregnant when you're living in a dorm room, is that not real? If you get busted for having weed in your dorm room, is that not life? They've got this strange impression that somehow or other they can just do what they want. They can go to class or not go to class, do the readings or not do the readings, make an effort with their essays or not. It doesn't really matter. Well, I guess for some of them it doesn't really matter. I mean, they can go off and get uh, jobs that don't have anything to do with their major. Like, so maybe they have a history major or an English major, and they end up working for a corporation doing something, or they might go into teaching, I suppose, and use the degree that way. But otherwise, they used to ask me, like, what can I do with a degree in anthropology? And I used to say, I don't know, maybe be happy, learn how to think, learn how to think critically, learn how to read a book with your eyes wide open. Why do you think you are in university? In fact, I was teaching a course long time ago now, called Classical Social Theory, and it was a required course for sociologists, anthropologists, and a few other majors, media studies. Maybe I don't remember all of it, but it was a big class. I mean, for my college, it had about I don't know, 50 students in it, something like that, and and it was big because it was required, and a lot of them were upset to take required courses because they had other courses that they could take. You know, like if you're an anthropologist, you could take I don't know, an area like South. I used to teach a course on Southeast Asia, not surprisingly, or the anthropology of aesthetics, or things that that they thought were amusing and engaging. But classical social theory, they've got to study Marx and Weber and Durkheim and Boas and theory, classical theory. Don't want to do that. But as a faculty, we all felt that they needed a grounding in theory. So one day, I mean, you can imagine, my classes, I would always I never used notes. I always had an idea of what I wanted to get across. But I was talking about Weber, I'm pretty sure. I think I was talking about the Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism, or something like that. And I was talking about his basic ideology and the importance of ideas and changing ideas as a way of cultures transforming. And so I was just kind of maundering on, I suppose. But I was trying to get at something deeper than just the stuff that they'd read. I was trying to challenge it. In fact, I was trying to say, well, look, here we've got Marx saying that it's the material base of a culture that affects how it works, and that when that material base changes, then ideas change. So that if you are an agricultural culture, then your religion might have something to do with fertility, let's say. You might have a goddess of fertility. But when you move from agriculture to manufacturing, then your idea of how things work may change too. I mean, obviously I'm being simplistic, but that's kind of how Marx thought. And Weber thought the opposite. Weber thought that if you have a set of ideas like sin and how the Catholic Church views sin, and then you have a Protestant Reformation, and now you are thinking in terms of sin like a Protestant, like the Catholic says, okay, I've sinned, so I go to the priest, I confess, I get absolved, and I can go off and sin again. Whereas the Protestant says, if I sin, it's like it's on my balance account for all of my life, and that there's nothing I can do to get rid of it. I have to just assume that God will forgive me after I've died and gone to judgment, and he ties that in with the work ethic and so forth. And so I was just trying to think about, like, which is right? Is it material? Is it ideological? Is it both? Neither? Whatever. And a student put up her hand, and I thought, this is, I've excited somebody, and I said, yes. What's the issue? I thought she was going to contribute something to my maundering, and she said, aren't we thinking about this too much? And that's one of the very few times when I've been teaching when I was speechless. So eventually I said to her, what do you think you're in college for? And her answer was to get a good job. And I was still just, dumbfounded about that. That, like, how do you think you get a good job because you've been to college and you've got a degree? She had this idea, and I think a lot of college students have this same idea, that you sort of check off a set of boxes and you get your degree, and then an employer will hire you because you've checked off all those boxes. Instead of the thought that you've been to college and you've learned some skills, critical thinking skills, that you can use in your job, and that's what you need. And in order to have critical thinking skills, you've got to learn how to think. And that was sort of what I was trying to show them how to do. So like, okay, I'm going to think about Weber, and here's how it works. And I don't really know how it all comes about, but I have an idea that a lot of my students and a lot of people in the world in general don't spend a lot of time in critical thinking. They accept a lot of things as they're given, and don't question them when they're reading a book. And I don't mean a novel or something like that, although it can work with a novel too. But certainly with, like reading a news story or reading a textbook, do they ever ask, is this true? Like, how does this person know that this is true, or is it just something that they've heard and they're repeating? There's a lot of things that I see on YouTube that are just not thought through. Occasionally I comment. I don't comment very often, but once in a while I will, because somebody on a YouTube video will say something so egregious that I have to point out that they're just dead wrong. But do you think critically when you read a news story? Or do you pack it away either in your store of biases, or reject it because of your biases? Or do you think critically? Well, that to me is is the substance of my work. It's not toil, it's labor, it's effort, but it's how I live. And there's a seamless non-boundary between my work and my life. They're the same. And so my question to you is that true for you too? And if it isn't, what can you do about it? Because it seems to me a terrible waste of your life, in a very general sense, if you spend the vast bulk of it doing something you don't want to do to earn money for the few occasions when you can spend the money doing what you want to do. Like, I want to do what I do all the time. I don't want to be wasting my time doing something that I don't want to do. I mean, yes, okay, I take out the trash, I mop the floors, I do the dishes. I have to do that. But that's minor in comparison with what I spend most of my days doing things that I enjoy doing. And so for me, work-life balance is meaningless. And I hope I hope you're in a similar situation, and if you aren't, I wonder what you're going to do about it. Well, anyway, there's my maundering for a Friday. Tuesday, I think I might have a little meander around Plough Monday, but I'm not sure because I've done that before, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to make a big cheese plate, and but I might make a plough pudding. I don't know. Anyway, if you like my videos, please tell your friends. Please like, please subscribe. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you on Tuesday.